Good day, Deep in Word family. Welcome to day 174 of our Bible study review. Today we're opening up a new book, the book of Daniel. It's one of my favorites, y'all. We're going through 2 chapters today, 1 through 2, and it's jam-packed, and that's why we're only doing 2 chapters today. Let's get into it. Let's start from verse 1. It says, "In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it." Now, if you don't remember who Jehoiakim was, he was the son of King Josiah, all right? King Josiah had a few sons, all right? And some of them sat upon the throne after him. Jehoiakim, you can find him in 2 Kings chapter 23. He was making a political alliance with Necho, Pharaoh of Egypt, right? He was against this whole Babylonian siege, right? But he couldn't stop it from happening, all right? So he was that king during the time of Daniel's deportation, or you can say exile. Verse 2. Yahweh gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand. And he's talking about into Nebuchadnezzar's hand, with part of the vessels of the house of Elohim. And he carried them into the land of Shinar to the house of his God. And he brought vessels into the treasure house of his God. So the vessels that were in the temple of Yah in Jerusalem started to make their way to Babylon, as Yahweh prophesied through Isaiah in chapter 39 of Isaiah. Go back and check it out. Verse 3, the king spoke to Ashpenaz, the master of his officials, that he should bring some of the sons of Israel and some of the king's descendants and some of the nobles, youths in whom there was no blemish, who were handsome and skillful with every branch of wisdom and gifted with understanding and discerning knowledge. As such, he had the ability in them to serve the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the language of the Chaldeans. So do you see how it works with war and with conquering other kingdoms and lands? That's what they did. They took the noblemen, right? And their descendants, their sons. They took all of the wise men first. They removed the strength and the pride of that country away to their captivity. And then once they were there, what do? They tried to strip them of their identity, right? And then make them knowledgeable in the way of their kingdom. Verse 5, it says, the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's food and of the wine which he drank. They were to be educated for 3 years, that at the end of it they might serve before the king. So that was the motive. It was to take away all of the young men, the strong men, those who were great in appearance, those who did not have a blemish, right? Because they were to represent the richness of this new kingdom, all right? And so verse 6, let's keep reading. Now among them were the sons of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Misha'el, and Azariah, to whom the commander of the official gave names. And to Daniel he gave the name Belteshazzar, and he gave to Hananiah Shadrach, and he gave to Misha'el Meshach, and he gave to Azariah Abednego. Now notice that's the first thing that they went after was their identity. These Hebrew boys are named, right, to give honor and credit to their God. Daniel, right? El is short for Elohim, right? Then we can go to Hananiah, and I'll spell it right here so you can see that the father's name is incorporated into his name. And then we see Misha'el, right, with the El at the end. And then you also see Azariah. Again, a part of the father's name is attached to his name. So now they're given new names and they're going to be reprogrammed, y'all. That's the revelation we need to have about this worldly system. It's Babylonian, all right? From the time that you are born, they want to condition you into their kingdom and into their program. And we need to know that at the very end, we will also receive new names, because once we come out of this Babylonian system, right, and we hear the voice of the great shepherd, we then are being programmed for the kingdom, right? We are being educated in kingdom ways, right? So our Heavenly Father most definitely is going to give us a name that matches our position, because that is the Hebrew way, right? Even our Messiah, his purpose was attached to his name, right? The oldest form of his name is Yahoshua, which means salvation of Yah. All right. So these Hebrew boys, they had names. And the Hebrew way is that your name meant something. It was attached to your purpose. It was attached to your call. And Nebuchadnezzar wanted to immediately go after their identity. That's what the enemy does. He immediately attacks your identity. So as soon as you accept Christ, what does he try to do? He comes to try to steal, kill, and destroy your new identity. Well, your true identity in Messiah. Let's get back to the text. Verse 8, it says, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's food, nor with the wine that he drank. Therefore he requested of the master of the officials that he might not defile himself." Now Elohim had brought Daniel into favor and compassion with the master of the officials. The master of the officials said to Daniel, "I fear my lord the king, who has appointed your food and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse looking than the youths who are your age? Then you would endanger my head before the king." So do you see that? Daniel purposed in his heart while going through this Babylonian exile. He knew what they were up to, but he said, "I will not be defiled by the king's portion, by the king's food." The one thing we need to go back and refresh our minds to understand is that when you are dealing with these ancient peoples, they had ancient deities, right? And there's only one God. They worshiped demons, right? And their food, their meat, everything that they brought into their palaces, right? They poured out drink offerings unto their gods, aka demons, and they also sacrificed their meat upon the altars, right? And so that is the revelation we need to go back to with Passover, right? So in the Passover, the children of Israel were to sacrifice a lamb, right? And the whole purpose, right? The whole understanding behind this is that when you sacrifice the lamb, right? It says that God now comes to inhabit that food, and then you eat that food, and that God inhabits you, right? And the Passover lamb is a picture of our Messiah. Once they sacrificed the lamb and they ate of the lamb, it says none of them were feeble. They were strong enough to go on this long journey, right? To run away from Pharaoh, to run away from a picture of Satan, right? They went through the water, which is a picture of being baptized, and then they were placed in the wilderness to receive a covenant, y'all. This is a picture of what we're going through right now. And so this is why Daniel said that he refused the king's portion. He did not want to defile himself, right? He didn't want to eat the food that was offered to their demons. He goes, "I'm cool. I'll just eat some vegetables." But this is a picture of us standing up for the kingdom and not bowing our knee to the system, not bowing our knee to try to fit in or try to blend in, right? We are steadfast in worshiping our God and our God alone. Let's get back to the text. Verse 11. Then Daniel said to the steward, whom the master of the officials had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Misha'el, and Azariah, "Please test your servants for 10 days, and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our countenances be looked upon before you and the countenances of the other youths who eat the portion of the king's food. And as you see, deal with your servants." So he consented to them in this manner and tested them for 10 days. Verse 15, at the end of 10 days, their countenances appeared fairer and fatter than all of the youths who ate the portion of the king's food. Thus the guard continued to take away the portion of their food and the wine that they were to drink, and gave them vegetables instead. As for these 4 youths, Elohim gave them knowledge and skill in every branch of learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all kinds of visions and dreams. So it looks as though Yahweh is rewarding them for their steadfastness and their faithfulness not to defile themselves with the king's portion. Now, this could be pork, this could be other things, but nonetheless, they don't want to eat food that is sacrificed, right, and offered up to other gods, right, which we know are only demons. It looks like Yahweh is rewarding them for their faithfulness and giving them wisdom that would exceed all of the people of the land, not just the Hebrew boys, but everyone in Babylon. These 4 Hebrew boys are given favor from the one true Elohim because they stood up for him and they decided to guard their mouth gate, right? What you let in, it does, and it can defile your temple. Let's finish out chapter 1, starting in verse 18. Now, at the end of the days that the king had set for them to be brought in, the master of the officials brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. The king spoke with them, and among them all, none was like Daniel, Hananiah, Misha'el, and Azariah. Therefore, they served before the king. In all matters of wisdom and understanding which the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all of the magicians, astrologers, and all that were in his realm. Daniel continued even to the first year of King Cyrus. Now let's walk into chapter 2 and start reading from verse 1. And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was troubled, and his sleep left him. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians and astrologers and the sorcerers and all of the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king, and the king said to him, I had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to understand the dream. The Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic, O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will tell the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, The command from me is firm. If you will not make known to me the dream with its interpretation, you shall be cut into pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if you tell the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore, tell me the dream and its interpretation. So Nebuchadnezzar was not playing games. He was like, no, you are supposed to be my wise men. You are supposed to be those who divine things, right? From the divine realm. You're supposed to tell me the dream and its interpretation, right? And they were trying to stall him because, of course, they don't know what he dreamed. Right? They're like, well, tell us what the dream is, and then we'll make up some interpretation. But let's just keep reading. Let's see how this goes. It says, they answered and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will tell the interpretation. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that you are bargaining for time, because you see that the command from me is firm. If you will not make known to me the dream, there is but one decree for you have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me until the circumstance is changed. Therefore, tell me the dream so that I know that you can tell me its interpretation. Verse 10. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there is not a man on all the earth who can tell the king's matter, inasmuch as no great king or no ruler has ever asked such things of any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. Also, it is a rare thing that the king requires, and there is no one who can tell it before the king, except the gods, whose dwelling is not in the flesh. So now we see that Nebuchadnezzar, he is angry, he is wroth, and he is putting out this decree to destroy all of the wise men within Babylon. And this includes Daniel and his 3 friends. All right, so it says that the captain guard of Nebuchadnezzar made this thing known to Daniel. Daniel then went to go tell his other 3 friends, and they immediately sought Yahweh for compassion, for answers, and for understanding. Daniel and the 3 boys, they pray, they petition Yahweh for answers. And it says that the answer shows up to Daniel in a night vision. And this is how he responds. He responds with praise, worship, and honor. And he says, blessed be the name of Elohim forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. It is he who changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and sets kings up. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who know understanding. He reveals the deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells within him. I thank and praise you, O Elohim of my fathers, for you have given me wisdom and might, and have made known to me now what we have asked of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter. And so this impossible thing is made known to Daniel, the dream and its interpretation, which no one else can do. Daniel then goes to the king's guard and he says, please stop this decree. Stop the king from going out to destroy all of the wise men. He says, I have an answer. And so the king's guard goes to Nebuchadnezzar and tells him, I have an answer. And so Daniel is brought before him, and Nebuchadnezzar, right, addresses Daniel by his Babylonian name. Let's pick up in verse 26. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name is Belteshazzar, are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, "The secret which the king has demanded, the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, and the soothsayers cannot tell the king. But there is a God in the heaven who reveals secrets and makes known to King Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days." This is the key to understanding the book of Revelation. The book of Daniel is the key. Let's get into it. Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed are these. As for you, O king, your thoughts came into your mind upon your bed about what would come to pass hereafter, and he who reveals secrets makes known to you what shall come to pass. But as for me, the secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living man, but for the purpose of making known the interpretation to the king, that you might understand the thoughts of your heart. You, O king, were watching, and there was a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold. Its breast and its arms are of silver, and its belly and its thighs are of bronze. Its legs are of iron and partly of clay. You watched until the stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image upon its feet, which were of iron and clay, and broke them all to pieces. Then the iron and the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were broken into pieces all together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them was found. But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Verse 36. This was the dream. Now we will tell you its interpretation before the king. You, O king, are the king of kings. For the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. Wherever the sons of men dwell, or animals of the field, or the fowl of the heavens, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. You are the head of gold. After you, another kingdom inferior to you shall rise, and a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, it shall crush and shatter all these. As you saw the feet and the toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. But there shall be in it some of the strength of the iron, inasmuch you saw the iron mixed with miry clay. As the toes and the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Where areas you saw the mixed iron and miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to one another, even as iron does not mix with clay. In the days of the kings, the God of heaven shall set up the kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to another people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all of these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw the stone that was cut without hands, and that it broke into pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, and the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what shall come and pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. Brothers and sisters, this is the dream. This is the image that Nebuchadnezzar saw. Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon, that is the gold head, which is confirmed that this is who he is. But there's going to be another kingdom that comes after him, all right? And that's going to be the Persians and the Medes. And we will see them take over as we read the book of Daniel. And then that bronze, that is Alexander the Great. And the last, it is Rome. And you will see at the very end in Revelation, right? This beast system that was wounded, right? It comes back to power. And who comes to throw it all down? The rock that is cut out without hands. That rock is our rock of salvation. That is our Messiah. When our Messiah comes, he comes to set up the kingdom, the everlasting kingdom. And the one who is brought back to power right before him, it is Rome. That is why we are warning to come out of these Roman ways. Come out of the Roman Catholic Church, because it is a false form of worship, and that is the same organization that is going to deceive the nations at the very end. And do you see how our Elohim gave a dream, right? And the only one who could give the interpretation is one of his own people. And this was prophesied long before these kingdoms ever came to pass. after Babylon, after Nebuchadnezzar. Our God is not a man that he shall lie. This is the key to understanding Revelation. Now let's finish out the chapter. Verse 46, then King Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and did homage to Daniel and commanded that they should present an offering and a sweet incense to him. The king answered Daniel and said, truly, your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and a revealer of secrets, since you could reveal this secret. Then the king advanced Daniel and gave him many gifts and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and over the chief rulers over the wise men. So then Daniel, requested that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would be a part of that. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were the ones responsible over the affairs of the province, but Daniel himself sat in the court of the king. I just want you to see that from the very beginning, these Hebrew boys set it out in their hearts that they would be faithful to him no matter what. And they have gained favor in the land of their captivity with King Nebuchadnezzar. And now Nebuchadnezzar, their enemy, is blessing them. This is an example of the favor that you get when you stand firm for your Elohim, when you remain true, when you refuse to defile yourself with the portion of Babylon, with the portion of this world, when you trust him and seek him, for the secret things, and you don't go to divination and astrology. He's the one who gives you answer, and he is the one who blesses you. Let the faithfulness of these Hebrew boys testify to you in the here and now, because make no mistake, you're in an exile, and you're waiting for that stone that is cut out without hands to come and crash down these kingdoms so that he can bring the everlasting kingdom. Will you be like these boys, standing faithful and firm until he shows up, or will you bow your knees like we're about to see tomorrow? And if you want to know what I'm talking about, then you have to show up tomorrow for tomorrow's reading and tomorrow's review. Deep in Word family, that's all that I have for you today. Until tomorrow, Yah bless.